Welcome back. I want to fill you in with the latest development on the Epstein case. As you know, I have been covering this story for a very long time. And because of that, I have known that President Trump has always been in the Epstein files. That is no surprise here. From the flight logs to the little black book, there are 14 phone entries in Epstein's little black book for Donald Trump, from everyone from Ivanka, his daughter, to his wife, Melania, to direct lines to Mar-a-Lago, where he was living. There are tons of pictures of them. They were very good friends for 15 years. But there's a wrinkle in this. Those mentions may not be the only mentions of President Trump in the Epstein files. And I'm talking about the Epstein files that we have not seen yet. On Wednesday night, there was breaking news about a meeting that has never been reported yet between Attorney General Pam Bondi and the President of the United States, in which she told him that you are in the Epstein files. So it has to suggest that it's in a way that he didn't already know, that wasn't already in the public, that we all already knew, because his name was in the classified binders that were handed to the influencers back in February. It's on the FBI vault for the Epstein case. So this must have been in a different context, in a different circumstance. When I asked the White House spokesperson Stephen Chung about it, I said, well, we know he's in the files, so what are these new mentions about? He responded to me, quote, "The Wall Street Journal is stupid." Kill the messenger, right? I've heard that one before. And think about this. Just a few weeks ago, he was asked by ABC News' Mary Bruce if he's been told that he is in the files. And he said no, a bold-faced lie, right? So the question is, how is he described in these files? According to CNN, that spoke to a DOJ source, a Department of Justice source, they said that the files included several unsubstantiated claims that the Justice Department could not find to be credible, including those to be relating to Trump. So we're just supposed to take their word for that whatever claims they found in these files relating to Trump were not worthy of being investigated. They were unsubstantiated. They were frivolous. But can we really believe them? I mean, this is the Department of Justice that works for President Trump. They are hand in hand. He obviously sees them as an extension of the White House. So unless we actually see those claims and they prosecute them and prove that they are not worthy of further investigation, I think there are always going to be questions hanging over this. In what context is President Trump mentioned in these files? And why not prove it to the American people in full transparency? Last night, I went on Erin Burnett live on CNN to talk about all this as an Epstein expert. As you know, I've traveled all over the country with the survivors, and I've heard their stories, which are incredibly credible, by the way. They all have the same stories. And I talk about the re-victimization that they're feeling right now, today, especially when they know that the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, is interviewing Epstein's groomer, Ghislaine Maxwell, the woman that lured them into the trap of a 50-year-old man who raped them and molested them. And they're wondering to themselves, why, after all these years of emotional toll, of testimony, of trying to prove their story when they were ignored for so many years, why they wouldn't turn to them and rather go to a woman who has been twice perjured, has always maintained her innocence, and in fact says she's a victim. It's incredibly heartbreaking for them, especially Annie Farmer, who I interview, and I'll show you our interview in a future podcast that I'm working on right now. But she just said, made her heart sink to hear that Ghislaine Maxwell would be considered a credible source. Also, why would Ghislaine Maxwell speak unless she thinks she's getting something out of it? This is an incredibly upsetting case. I think for there to be transparency, they need to release the transcript between the conversation between Ghislaine Maxwell and Todd Blanche to make sure that this wasn't just an opportunity for them to meet and hatch a deal, but truly an opportunity for some new information. Although I don't think that Ghislaine Maxwell is credible. Go to the victims. They have the information. So take a listen here. If she's granted any clemency, a pardon, a commutation, there'll be outrage, and it's just not right.
Good evening, I'm Erin Burnett, and out front tonight we begin with the breaking news. President Trump's name is in the Epstein files multiple times, and he was told that by the Attorney General Pam Bondi in a briefing in May. Now, being mentioned in the files, of course, is not an indication of specific legal wrongdoing, according to the Wall Street Journal, which first reported this story. But they say that Bondi and her deputy, quote, told the president at the meeting that the files contained what officials felt was unverified hearsay about many people, including Trump, who had socialized with Epstein in the past, some of the officials said. One of the officials familiar with the document said they contain hundreds of other names. Now, this is important because this conversation, according to sources to the Journal, took place in May. All right, May is not now. Now is July. But last week in July, Trump was asked if he'd spoken to Bondi about the files. And I want to play the exchange.
The Attorney General briefed you on the DOJ and FBI's review, the findings of that review. The Attorney General briefed you on that.
What?
On the DOJ and FBI review.
On what subject?
Epstein. Okay. On Epstein, of the review of the files. Attorney General Pam Bondi briefed you on that.
Very quick briefing.
Did she tell you, what did she tell you about the review? And specifically, did she tell you at all that your name appeared in the file?
No, she's given us just a very quick briefing. And in terms of the credibility of the different things that they've seen, and I would say that, these files were made up by Comey, they were made up by Obama.
All right, so you heard what Trump said. That was July 15th, 2 months after the briefing from Bondi. He specifically asked, did she tell you at all that your name appeared in the files? Trump says, no. All right, well, that would be a lie if he's saying that he was not told his name specifically appeared in the files. So this significant development may also explain why Trump and his allies have totally changed their tune when it comes to releasing everything related to the Epstein case. Here's Donald Trump in June of 2024.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
I'd be inclined to do the Epstein. I'd have no problem with it.
All right, he said he'd have no problem with it. Well, here is Trump's vice president, Vance, in October 2024.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list. That is an important thing.
And as for Pam Bondi herself, here she is talking about Epstein and the case in January of 2024.
Jeffrey Epstein is dead, and Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison for 20 years where she belongs. And if people in that report are still fighting to keep their names private, Sean, they have no legal basis to do so unless they're a child, a victim, or a cooperating defendant by some chance against some potential case against Ghislaine Maxwell.
So Trump's name wouldn't fit any of those categories. Here's Kash Patel before he was FBI director. So this is in 2023.
Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are. We have an election coming up, and we need to adjudicate this matter at the polls.
All right, so that's consistent. That's a lot of people over a lot of time, and they're all saying the same things. But since May, when the Bondi briefing that the Wall Street Journal is reporting on, when she briefed Trump that his name was in there, since that took place, things have changed. Here's what Trump is saying now.
I call it the Epstein hoax. Takes a lot of time and effort.
I don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. It's pretty boring stuff. It's sordid, but it's boring. And I don't understand why it keeps going.
So tonight, the questions are growing much louder when it comes to the relationship between Epstein and Trump, giving audio like this, which is Epstein in 2017, a potentially whole new meaning.
So how do you know this?
That was close to straight.
And out front now, Barry Levine, the former editor of the National Enquirer and the author of The Spider, Inside the Criminal Web of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Also here tonight, Tara Palmeri. She has investigated the Epstein case extensively over years. That in your covering the Epstein case for years, as you have, Tara, you have spoken to victims regularly. Yeah. You have more of a sense than anybody else, probably you and Barry, of what is in these files. So when it comes to the victims and when it comes to the people who were present, participating, whatever role they may have played, the men who are in these files, how many names are in here?
I mean,
there were about 1,000 victims.
1,000 victims.
Many of them recount the men that were around, some of them that abused them, and some of them that were just witnesses to the abuse that could help corroborate their stories. And a lot of them, I mean, Virginia Giuffre, who I was in touch with before she died, before she took her life, I mean, she recalled meeting Donald Trump. He never assaulted her, but she recalled meeting him, and she put him on the witness list, and that's why Brad Edwards, her lawyer, subpoenaed him. And when and he subpoenaed him to ask him about their relationship.
Right, that he would have seen something, perhaps, is what she's saying, not that he did something.
Right, and he spoke about their friendship, and that's something that he was not afraid of at the time. And I think it's undeniable that they had a friendship. There's no doubt about that. The question is, what is the context in which he is presented in these files? The White House right now, when I reached out to them, they said, well, you know, the flight logs, the little black book where he's mentioned 14 times, including for numbers for Ivanka and Melania. No. Where else? How else? We need to know. Is that it? And I've yet to get a yes or no question, and I've yet to read a yes or no question. Is there more? And this idea of like nefarious hearsay, what are you doing to find out that it's nefarious hearsay? Are you doing any investigations? Right. Are you trying to corroborate that evidence? Or are you just disregarding it because it is the testimony of a child or a woman?
Right. And because it's about him, so therefore it's nefarious hearsay. I mean, that's the implication that is in there when they say it's Obama and Comey making it up. Let me play again, Ryan, what Trump said when he denied being told that he was in it after he had been told he's in the files. Here it is.
What did she tell you about the review? And specifically, did she tell you at all that your name appeared in the file?
No. She's given us just a very quick briefing. And in terms of the credibility of the different things that they've seen, and I would say that, you know, these files were made up by Comey, they were made up by Obama.
So he clearly, when said, did you find out your name was in the files? He said, no, right? He's appearing to deny that. And then he says the files were made up. So what does the apparent lie say to you?
It says a couple things. I think it says that what's in those files might be, at a minimum, not flattering to the president. So it might mean that he was at least a witness. And one of the big questions, a moral question, not necessarily a legal one, is for people who knew Jeffrey Epstein that well. There's a lot of allegations that if you knew him that well, if you were in that mansion, you knew what was going on, and you did nothing to stop it. And that's one issue that I think it presents itself. So why is he denying something that's obviously and easily proven to be false? It also goes to the chronology, so that it looked as though everybody was barreling ahead in his administration to release these files. He's then informed by the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General that he's in there.
Which you would think he would have assumed anyway, but
you would think that. Yeah. So it's actually, what is he told he is in there about? Because he had to have been in there. I mean, they had this friendship. He's on the plane logs. He's in the black book.
So was he given the context?
So was he given some context? And in that context, that's where the reversal comes in. And suddenly the DOJ and FBI say, well, we'll make no more public disclosures whatsoever.
So Barry, if the files do get released, and whether you know, whether on purpose, some of it leaked, however they come out, how much bigger does this get?
Well, of course, it's going to be what names we hear. I'm surprised at this point that we haven't seen a whistleblower. From the FBI or from another intelligence agency who might have had their hands on the files at some point leak something out. It is interesting that we haven't received anything, but we have to get to the actual documents.
And what about Ghislaine Maxwell, Tara? Because now it's like, okay, she's been subpoenaed by a House Oversight Chair, as Jeff was just reporting. But obviously, and Comer said there's no pardon in the works. Obviously, the only person that can get her out of jail for prison for her 20-year sentence is Donald Trump.
Exactly.
Which would certainly put her, motivations in a certain place. You have covered her extensively. So what happens here?
I mean, you can even see from the language from her lawyers, we're so grateful for this conversation to Donald Trump. She's not going to speak without getting something out of it. I mean, she's a very shrewd operator. And for the victims, when they see this, when they have spent so much time, years testifying, energy of having to relive the trauma of a woman who sexually abused them as well and groomed them and used the fact that she was a woman, a very posh woman who was friends with princes and presidents to lure them into a man. They weren't going to walk up to some 50-year-old man's home in Palm Beach. They needed to be brought by her to see the idea that
a woman who also perjured herself, that they would be even considering her and what she has to say is heartbreaking. I mean, I spoke to one victim today, Annie Farmer, and she said it made her stomach turn to hear that.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Thanks for listening to the Tara Palmeri Show. I want to thank my producer, Eric Abinate, my booker, Jane Fesco, and my team of researchers, Abby Baker and Luke Radel, and my social media manager, Sarah Carney. If you like this show, please follow it, subscribe, leave a written review. I'd really appreciate that, and share it with your friends. You can get more of my independent reporting by going to tarapalmeri.com and signing up for my newsletter, The Red Letter. It'll come straight to your inbox, and if you become a paid subscriber, it's a way to support my independent journalism. I'll be back again soon.